And we're live here with real news. Another week in COVID America, in Biden's COVID lockdown, militarized America. And the big stories we're going to talk about this week are number one, the Dr. Seuss cancellation scandal controversy and what it means, and Cuomo's Me Too moment, and anything. And Coming to America's interesting sequel. We'll dive into that because Phil saw it. I have not yet. But let's start off with Dr. Seuss because that's something that I think it's a very interesting story. There's more than meets the eye to it because what basically happened, and I'll show the images because the mainstream media wasn't showing it, which had me a little off put that they weren't showing it. But the people that published the Dr. Seuss books decided that they were going to stop publishing 6 of his books, stop printing them. And when I saw that, I thought, oh boy, why is that? And they're like, because of racism. And I looked into it, and it's a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm going to be honest. There are some things in there in some of the books that I go, ooh, that's uncomfortable. And there's some things I'm like, wait, that's it? That's what they're just completely stopping praying for that? And there's more to it that we'll dive into, but that's on the surface of it. But the deeper part of it, to me, that gets crazy is when they announced that they were going to stop publishing these books and stop printing them. It happened immediately. It wasn't like, oh, get them now while you still can. No, it happened immediately. Amazon, you couldn't buy them. Barnes Noble, you couldn't buy them. So I started looking at secondhand and third-hand and fourth-hand resellers. And there were some on eBay, but they were a lot of freaking money. And within, it must have been 48 hours, eBay started banning sales of these books. It was crazy. I mean, they're just like, oh, it's not like we're banning people from circulating, but no, you couldn't get them. Like, people couldn't sell them. So I think this is really, really weird, really scary in some ways. What do you think about this?
Um, I I think it's just another piece of something that's already been going on for quite some time, and it's sad just because I was listening to a couple of other shows, and some of them came up with some really good points too. They don't. It, it's I don't know how much activism was involved with the
Hmm.
Dr. Seuss thing, so I can't really uh speculate on like the activism that was tied into Dr. Seuss. But we're living in a world where there's a bunch of there's a bunch of white people that run these companies that are scared as fuck, right?
Yeah.
Because like I think that's what it like they're making decisions that aren't good for their business wise, that aren't good for their bottom line, but they're making them anyway, more because I think they're scared of the perceived activism that comes along with it. Because even like and a lot of the times, if you when these companies, when they don't do anything about, like, it's nothing. It's
Yeah, it
nothing.
blows
Like
over.
it blows over.
Yeah.
But it's like the perceived activism
Hmm.
is what they're scared of. Like you're not gonna like you could lose, like that, like these leaders are scared that they'll lose their job, right? And it's like there's like a whole lot of stuff that's going on with it. There's advertising companies that are looking to, you know, keep their keep their money coming in, and a lot of them are funded by, you know, anti American shit. they're funded a lot of these advertising companies. They get a lot of their money from like foreign ad, like uh, China, Saudi Arabia, some of them Iran, some of them Venezuela, Cuba. Like a lot of these, like they want to make, they're getting their money from those guys, and so those advertising companies are dictating a lot of what gets monetized and what doesn't get monetized, especially when you're talking about social media, because that's where the bulk of social media's revenue comes from advertising, comes from Google, that's advertising. Facebook, that's advertising. There's a lot. There's a lot of money tied to that, and so you get a lot of these people that are pulling the strings. And so when when you have that, you got these people that are running these companies that are just scared. They're scared. They're like, oh my god, if I say one bad thing, or if I bless off on one bad thing, or if I don't do anything about this, what some activist said on fucking Twitter, then I could lose my job, or I could lose whatever. I could lose my business or whatever. And this is the world that we're living in. You got advertising companies that are basically pulling strings and swaying things one direction or the other. You've got people within the company that are probably looking to take the CEOs and the board members' jobs and shit like that. Like you've got, it's just a culmination of a whole lot of stuff going on right now. And this is another thing. Like, oh, like, so I'm sure that the publisher, like whatever fucking publisher that Dr. Seuss had, I'm sure that they publish other stuff too. And I'm 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 guessing some woke person probably was like, oh, look at this Dr. Seuss thing. Look at this. They're not trans friendly or whatever. Something, whatever. And you know, the people that own the production company and all the other companies are probably like, oh, we better get rid of this shit because we don't want to get tied in with this activist type shit. So
Yeah, I think it's very. I want to explain a few things because I've been researching this quite a bit because when I first heard about it, I thought this is crazy. And I also thought it was weird that they announced this on his freaking birthday. Like on Read Across America Day, which has become Dr. Seuss Day, which has become a thing that encourages people, young kids, to read. It's a great thing. And I remember when I was in school, we would read Dr. Seuss that day. And I find it very strange that they decide to make this announcement on his birthday. It's almost like a FU to the grave. And what's very chilling for me is the bigger picture of this. Because, like you said, it is a piece of a bigger thing. But it's taking it in a very interesting direction because I personally think the motivation behind the people that pull the strings in the shadows on this is to slowly remove the traditional children's media with movies, TV shows, books, and replace it with their own. Replace with these. It's cultural Marxism. It's a form of it.
mm-hmm.
And when I look into the books, because this is what caught me off guard, is I first looked up the book that I remember being read in school. And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street, which is the first book Dr. Seuss ever wrote. It's a very important book, in that regard. It was written in 1937. Okay? This wasn't written in 2020. This was written in 1937. Okay, 1930s America was a pretty messed up place. It wasn't I think the biggest thing people should do right now is try to put their minds into what it was like then. Nobody's trying to do that. But this entire book has nothing wrong with it except one page with one character with one line that they decided to ban it over. And when I was looking at the book on YouTube, I couldn't even find it. Initially, I started looking at it again and I thought, oh, that might be it. There's a Asian looking guy with some stereotypical stuff. And I thought, that's it. But I look back further because I started seeing different versions of it. So the Asian guy, the original version has him with yellow skin, and I thought, ooh, okay, that's yeah, I get it. That's uncomfortable. That's not acceptable today. And they called him a Chinaman. Now, this is the part nobody talks about, is that years later, Dr. Seuss himself actually changed it. He took away the pigtails, he took away some of the other features, and he took away the yellow skin and he changed it to Chinese man. So Dr. Seuss, the artist himself, actually changed this, but that was not enough. And so they removed the entire book. I think that's unacceptable. I think this book is perfectly fine in its current state, and I don't see any problem with it, especially it being his first book. And for being that clean from 1937 is remarkable, honestly. Because if you look at Dr. Seuss's comics he used to draw before the books, oh, were they uncomfortable to look at by today's standards. But the only, and I started looking at the other books. I looked at the other ones. So there was, what's it called? I'm already forgetting the name. There was the one, I think it's Cat's Quizzler, which is one I don't even know if anybody read. Yeah, the Cat's Quizzler. And there's one reference in there to, I think it's Pygmies is what it's called. I didn't even know what it was, but it was supposed to be like a African tribe of like short people. Like it's some, you know, like tribe in Africa that where they're all like I guess genetically born shorter than the average person, kind of like midgets. And so there's a very uncomfortable, not acceptable drawing of them in it. Just one drawing, the whole book's gone. And I look at this is the craziest one was McElligot's Pool, which I remember reading in the library. I looked at there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing. There's not even people in it except for like 2 pages. And the page with the person has, and I'm not making this up, an Eskimo, with like the coat up and like fishing for fish. That was the stereotype that they got it for and said that it should be banned for. That is insane. So Mulberry Street, McElligot's Pool, I don't see any problems in their current forms. If I ran the zoo, I could see that one being a little uncomfortable because it's got some bad stuff with the way they drew Africans. But do you ban the books from being printed? That is the question. Personally, I would do either one of these things. I'd either not touch it or I'd make a different version. You could call it a revised version and sell both of them. Because I think what the important lesson with Dr. Seuss is in a very important American message and a human message, which is that Dr. Seuss drew things that are now considered unacceptable. But he also showed in his work that he as a person had changed. He went from drawing stuff that was unacceptable. But then he later wrote books like Horton Hears a Who, books like The Sneetches, where he clearly is decrying racism, where he's clearly decrying anti Semitism. It shows that he as a person probably changed. And I think that should be the lesson to kids. And maybe you can show these books in schools with the, unacceptable drawing saying, be like, look, this is a guy who's probably a good person at the time that did unacceptable things for whatever reason. That's something to explore. But later in life, he changed, he evolved, he became a better person. Like, that's what this cancel culture comes down to. To me, that's the interesting piece here is that they are canceling people who changed, who made themselves better people. That is messed up. That's anti-human. But
Yeah,
yeah,
totally anti-human. You like so and really, there's no what you have right now are people that have haven't lived long enough to really have a accurate historical grasp of the transitions of things like like racial injustice or whatever. Look, you got 20-year-old kids. Like, you're not, I'm sorry, if you're younger than 30, you haven't lived long enough to really grasp the historical elements that were the dynamics of racial injustice. I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
haven't lived long enough because there were transitions that happened. Like, and not only that, there there's there's histor there are historical inaccuracies, but there are historical inaccuracies in really everything. Like, you can't, if you're gonna take away, if you're gonna remove historical documents based on some historical inaccuracies, there would be no history. There'd be no history because you're basing history off of other people, some shit that somebody else wrote. And humans are, opinionated. They're subjective, right? It's
Yeah.
subjective. And so, in my opinion, I'm all for not changing a fucking thing,
Yeah.
because
I agree.
that's,
If anything,
if
create
it's
something
messed
else.
up,
Don't
you
destroy,
learn from it.
create.
But yeah, which Dr. Seuss did, right?
Mm-hmm.
He created other shit. And so you look at what, you look at what was out there, and and that's a good, and that itself is a good teacher. Like, this existed, this is messed up now because of blah 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 blah, but you don't remove it.
Yeah.
You show it to teach a historical lesson,
Yes.
right? That's how you grow. And but you have a lot of people that are just like, well, that a lot of these young people that are just trying to get rid of it or whatever, or you got a bunch of people that are, you know, worried about the bottom line or worried about any kind of activist expense that'll go along with it. Like, it's one of those things where this is the world we live in now, and the main question is really, how do we change it? Like,
Yeah.
how do we combat it?
Yes, that's what it's coming to, because really I think this week has been very important for quote unquote the history of cancel culture,
Mm-hmm.
because you're seeing people who do normally side with conservatives on these things, like Bill Maher, for example, who's a blatant leftist progressive, but
Mm-hmm.
he's always been sound on free speech and decry political correctness. And he did a show actually just recently on how ridiculous it was canceling all these people. And he brings up Gina Carano and all these other recent examples. And I think that shows that he brings up a point that's, one that's been said many times, which is that cancel culture is going to come for the left next. It's going to come for you next. It's going to come from everybody next. And I think that's only when the turning point actually starts. And I think the other turning point that can start is bringing canceled, like, people need to be unafraid, unabashed in talking about canceled people, meeting with canceled people, like doing everything you can with them, promoting them if they're good people. Let me caveat that. There are some people that are pretty bad. Harvey Weinstein, deservedly canceled. I think we'd all agree. But it shows just how quickly things got out of hand. Because this all kind of started in 2017 when you had, I guess you could say it started with Bill Cosby. Maybe in the political realm, you could say Milo was one of the early victims of this too, and he was wrongfully canceled. But Bill Cosby, when that started, and what's the guy from Fox? Roger Ailes. When those people started getting the Me Too hammer, which rightfully they did, it hit more people that seemed pretty guilty, but it quickly got to Louis C.K., Aziz Ansari, people that did stuff that was like weird, awkward maybe, but not illegal, not wrong. It really quickly got that way, and now it's just getting worse. And I have to say, the best take I've read on the Dr. Seuss thing is from The Week. They wrote an article on it, and they bring up some good points, which is like, there are things that you love and cherish that you had no clue as to their origins or how things had changed with them, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, beloved children's movie and book. Well, in the book, originally the Oompa Loompas were actually going to be African pygmies. Yeah, that would not fly today, but
Mhm.
they quickly changed that. Roald Dahl quickly changed that in his novel. But, there were other things I was reading this article too that were interesting, like the fact that on Dr. Seuss Day, Read Across America Day, for this year, President Biden did not mention Dr. Seuss from his proclamation, and neither did the NEA. They are no longer affiliating with Dr. Seuss Enterprises.
Mm.
Isn't it interesting how quickly the shift happened with this? I mean, to me, this is a big deal. It seems like maybe another case of cancel culture gone mad, but I think that is the wrong way of looking at it, saying that it's just like crazy people doing this, because yes, it is, but there is a bigger picture, like you were saying, and it shows that they are strategically doing this. This is something that's being done methodically.
Mm.
It's kind of like they're these puppet masters that know what they're doing, and they just got to get their crazies going. They wind them up and then they get them going. That's what you're seeing with this. I mean,
Mhm.
and the thing that this guy wrote, like, what, 60, 70 books?
Yeah.
And there's only a few pages that are problematic, you know?
Yeah. I think they're getting part of this. I mean, a lot of it is just like I feel like the advertisers or the advertising companies, just because like they're trying to make the most they're trying to make the most out of their advertising revenue that they possibly can, of course,
Right.
which they feel like their analysis is kind of saying, oh, we don't want to do this because we don't want to alienate anybody, but in all reality you're not really alienated, because most alienating people, because a lot of people tend to not give a shit. Like
That's
they're
the
like, I
thing.
don't care,
Do you
I
know
don't
how
care.
long these books have been read? And nobody said really anything. I've
Yeah,
seen some that did. Like when I was looking at some older reviews, people were like, yeah, there's some stuff in this that's uncomfortable. So don't read to your kids. That's the simple
yeah,
solution. Don't buy it, don't read it.
yeah.
It's just
Like
very weird.
there was one thing that I there was a past, like, okay, this is another example. There's a past thing that I read. uh there was like a there was like a tribal chief that said that the Jeep Cherokee
Oh no.
didn't honor us, that didn't honor us,
Why? Because it
right?
breaks down
Which,
all the time?
no, but I mean, okay, so uh, I think when Jeep created the Grand Cherokee, it was like the first classified SUV, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first classified SUV. Obviously, there were other vehicles that could have been deemed SUVs back in the day, but that was like, I think it was in like the late 70s or something like that. That was the first one that actually was classified as a SUV. And because of that, they wanted the might have been Lee Iacocca, which,
Mm-hmm.
imagine saying that name. It's been years since anybody's heard that name. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but they wanted to name it Grand Cherokee after Cherokee, right? Right after the Cherokee, because it was the first SUV. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like it's one of those things. It's like, well, I don't know. Not everybody feels honored, I guess. I don't know, and but that doesn't mean that they weren't trying to. I don't know. I think context is needed. Like, and again, you got a lot of these people in the media that are just writing articles, just whimsy nilsy, like, just we're just writing them just to fucking start shit, like.
Yeah. There's a lot of
And
different motivations going on, you
yeah,
know?
like like, who get like, I think. But going back to the advertising,
Mm.
there's not going. I mean, eventually there's going to be pushback, and I think there already is.
Yeah.
Um, there's already starting that just because uh people are not going to watch certain things. People aren't going to watch overly political shit. They're just not going to do it. They're just going to tune it out. You see it all the fucking time.
Yeah.
All the time you're seeing it,
It
right?
turns me off. Every time I hear there's a movie that's woke, I'm just like, okay, I don't want to see it now.
Yes.
I just don't want to see it.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and that eventually hurts the overall advertising bottom line because if people stop watching your network, peop advertisers are not going to pay for things because part of the advertising, part of when advertiser or when networks charge for advertising or whatever, you're charging because you're basically forecasting a guaranteed number of people that watch your advertisements, right?
Right.
And when people stop watching those advertisements, or when people stop watching your program, they guess what else they stop watching? Your advertising.
Yep.
So then the next, which it doesn't really hurt this year, but that next year when you have to renegotiate those contracts, that's gonna be in the frame of thought. Like, oh, you had a 20% drop in viewership. Guess what? Maybe I should just pay 20% less to you guys for, paying advertising. And that's usually what happens. Like, because it's always a negotiation. And yeah, I mean, so this is what you have to deal with, and people are already you're starting to figure it out. Like, people are willing, when people are willing to pay money. And we talk about like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro. I hate fucking saying his name. um when people are actually pay money to see and hear these people, and like Outkick, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
sports. I if you're conservative and you don't have Outkick, I don't know what's wrong with you. I just don't know what's wrong. If you're into sports and you're conservative and you don't have Outkick, I don't know what to tell you, because that is some of the best commentary I hear. I mean, not only that, like I watched, or not, I didn't watch, but there was a podcast the other day where Clay Travis of Outkick uh, talked with Will Kane, who's now on Fox News, or he's now on Fox News. But before that, he was working for ESPN as a sports personality. So those two got together. It was fantastic. It was fantastic commentary. And um, when people are willing to pay money to hear that over what's for free on your network, there's a problem, right? There's a problem because, I mean, if like, what's the point of you advertising something if nobody's going to watch it, right? If people are, what's the point of you advertising on a network when other people are paying to see the other stuff? They're paying money to see the other stuff. And so this is it's like a big picture scenario that tends to not do well. It's not gonna bode well for these woke cancel culture people. It's gonna
Yeah.
it's gonna it's gonna end badly. Um, but the problem is, the problem's gonna be like, well, how long until they finally get it, or how long until they figure it out? I mean, obviously, you're gonna have networks like CNN and MSNBC, who are a part of a bigger media conglomerate, or a multimedia conglomerate, who don't care. They just don't care. They're like, well, if CNN loses money, well, then whatever. We don't give a shit, because AT&T, Time Warner, they make enough money ripping you off on your fucking phone bill to like make up for it. Like MSNBC, they're making money ripping you off on your cable bill. Like, yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
they do.
it is, yeah. And I mean, so, but it's going to be those other players that get totally dashed. Like all of these other people are just going to get totally dashed. Disney's another thing. Like, you know, ESPN does all this woke bullshit, but they're owned by Disney. So obviously Disney is kind of do like they're part of a bigger multimedia conglomerate too. Like, so um I I mean they can get away with it, but only for I mean, I guess it's all so they can prolong the inevitable, but like you're still going to lose viewership. You're still going to lose money. You're still going to lose, you know, I don't know. It's just not, it's not worth it in the long run.
Yeah, well, and if you're a company that's just tailoring to the left, like you're gonna be fine. But when you're one of these companies that's trying to be neutral and you pick a side, well, you're gonna turn off half the country, and that's what's happening. It's like everything's getting politicized. It's just getting insane, more so than it already was. And that's the thing that I think, it's like you're seeing stuff like with the Dr. Seuss thing. There's a theory that's floating around that the Cat in the Hat is actually inspired by black minstrel shows because he has a hat on and because he comes to white children and entertains them and has an umbrella. Like, these people see things that just aren't there. It's a cat
No,
and he
but
wears
this
a
is what
silly hat.
this, I, I, I wonder. So I wonder if it's either,
Intentional to like try and get rid of it.
yeah, I wonder if it's like fake outrage activism,
Mm,
or
it could be.
or is it or is it just like naturally mentally unstable people on social media that are just looking for shit? Because we talked about this last week. If you look at
Oh yeah,
if
the
mentally
CPAC
unstable
thing.
people are looking, yeah, if mentally unstable people are looking for something, they'll find it in anything in their messed up heads. Like, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. Like, and most of the time it's not real at all. It's just like, and this is what I say. I'm like when I, I hate when I hate when people talk about what is it? The like what was it? Critical race theory. Yeah, that's it.
Oh
Where they
god.
where they talk about, oh, there's institutional racism. There's racism in our institutions. Like, no there isn't. No there isn't.
Yeah, it's
Our
bullshit.
institutions were formed via a melting pot of ideas, right? Our constitution was created basically off of a melting pot of all sorts of ideals. Like, you have all kinds of people from all walks of life that helped create what is what is known by our constitution. We have pros and cons from everything. You tell, like, Greeks, Romans, um, there's stuff from Chinese dynasties, there's British stuff, there's German stuff. There's like all kinds of ideals from all walks of life that come to this very thing. Um just because some white people, and I'm like, and say, like, well, what are you talking about? Like, white people, like, first you have Spanish, then you have, like, you've been to New York. It's a fucking melting pot. There's
Oh
all
yeah.
kinds of people in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, and people see it from, like, white and black, like, and it's just like those are skin colors. You know how many, like, how do you define white? How do you define black? Because, like,
There's lots of different shades,
there's
literally and
so much shades.
metaphorically.
It's just like, you got Irish, Italian, Spanish. Are they white? Or you've got, because Spanish, for a lot of Spanish, are actually very light skinned. they look white. They look white when you
Marco
look at
Rubio and
them. They
Ted
look
Cruz.
right. They look white, but like what? I mean, it doesn't it just falls apart. But they push it logically. It falls apart, but they just continue to push it. The critical race theory. They force feed it in the schools. They force feed it in the employment sector. They force feed it in literally everything. It's like um and I don't again, how do you combat it when they're just absolutely trying to force feed it, and basically if you fight it, you're gonna lose. You're gonna be an outcast. Like if you fight it in the school, that'll probably affect your grade. If
Yeah,
you fight it in unemployment, you're probably gonna lose your job. I just it's just crazy to me that they create this stuff out of total bullshit. I mean, it's bullshit,
it's scary
and
too. That's
it's
the
scary.
thing that's, because I think about what it means for normal people. Like,
Yeah,
when you have Gina Crown, for example, she obviously seems like someone's a very nice person, very genuine, but she's got money. She's fine. People that don't have a lot of money and they're caught reading a Dr. Seuss book. Oh my God, you're fired. It's like there can be so many weird ways this can go. And if there's one thing I'd encourage people to do, because I actually just did this a few minutes ago before I started the show, is when I saw that Cat in the Hat theory, that's like a menstrual show, and all these other things, it gave me an idea. I'm like, well, I need to really try and think what it was like to be back then. So I went on YouTube and I typed menstrual show, and the first one that came up, I clicked on, and it was one. I mean, it's. I've seen these before. I say the first one that really disturbed me was the one you actually sent me. Not to out you, was of what's her name from the Wizard of Oz, in like wearing blackface. It like totally fucked me up. Like I
yeah, Judy
couldn't
Garland.
comprehend it. It's like,
Yeah,
what? That's insane. She's like, everybody
yeah,
knows her, likes her, loves that movie. It's total classic. You would never think she would have done that before. But that tells you something. And the one I saw told me something too. Because I couldn't even finish it. I just couldn't because I started watching it. And not that I couldn't handle it, but it's like, all right, get the point. Like, don't need to see anymore. The character's name that was wearing blackface was like Cotton, and the stereotype after, like, not even stereotypes, the racist degradation was, saying that he was lazy, saying that, like, he would say like, oh, I was trying to be a this and that type of job, and they would correct him saying he was stupid. Like, it was every racist thing you could think of, one after next. And what's crazy is, from our eyes in 2021, is this shit was normal, accepted, and popular. Now, take that into consideration and watch one of those and come back and tell me, if you lived in that time, if you were Dr. Seuss, wouldn't you would you be different than he was, honestly? And then most people aren't going to be honest because they're biased, but that just tells you right there how totally different this world is. It's insane to think that what they did in those was acceptable, popular, and just the most normal thing ever. And now it's the complete opposite. Rightfully so, it's changed, but it's crazy. Like, it's crazy.
yeah.
Especially the Judy Garland one. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just so
I think
messed up.
we need to get back to uh the we need to get back to the country where the best ideas triumph, right?
Yes.
Where the most logical ideas count. The most, you know, where we go to logical explanations for things, where we go um where each idea that we talk about is comprehensive in nature. It's just like um well, let's take an example, the minimum wage, right? Like they're trying to make a $15 minimum wage or whatever. Like, and most of the arguments you hear are sorry, are the kind of Bernie Sanders esque explanations, like, "Oh, people need to have a livable wage," and like, I mean, it's like, well, like clearly we need more economists that are fucking arguing this mess, because like anybody who has any idea of economics will tell you that if you raise the minimum wages, it has a ripple effect on everything else, which at best you're looking at a temporary benefit, but a long term uh degradant, like, to everything else. Like it,
Raising
and
minimum wage is one of the stupidest things. Like, you don't even need to be an
yeah,
economist to know it
yeah,
is dumb. Like,
yeah.
it is objectively dumb. You raise the wage of all your workers. Okay. Well, guess what a company's going to have to do? They're going to cut workers. You're going to be less jobs. And in most cases, what they do now is they replace humans with machines. Like at a McDonald's,
Yep,
they'll put in kiosks to order your shit. It's so
yep.
stupid. But, there's
Mm-hmm.
probably some malicious reasons certain people behind the scenes are pushing this stuff. But yeah, you see that. You see also like the stim pack that they push through with giving the stim checks to illegals. It's just, this is only the beginning. This is only a few months into Biden's America. We have Dr. Seuss canceled. We have
Mm-hmm.
uh money going to illegals. We have $15 minimum wage being pushed. We have more and more stuff, and we're gonna get into the Cuomo things. That's also kind of related to all this. But to actually
Mm-hmm.
answer your question though, and you can go back on the minimum wage thing, I was gonna say before I forget is that I think one thing I thought about with fighting back against cancel culture was kind of what gave me an awakening, a aha moment as to what we could use that new org for. Because free speech is always going to be a relevant ish thing, kind of, but the battle's with cancel culture now and big tech censorship. And I thought that could be interesting. that's where we go where nobody else is going, because this cancel culture thing bothers me a lot. So,
Mm-hmm.
but continue. Sorry for that intrusion.
No, no. I mean, that was pretty much it for me. But I mean, to we but we need to get back to the idea where um well, I mean, I think part of it, well, actually, I think almost all of it is I mean, you've got so much corruption in DC.
Oh
Like the
yeah.
corruption is just so bad in DC, and like they're not looking for your interest. Like they're not looking out for your interests. I mean, it's like, I think, you've got two groups of people. You've got two sides of the political aisle that are led by two different groups of donors that have, that are moving in a said direction, and like that are trying to lobby in a sense of direction that, like, and even if they do nothing, then it's like they don't care, like, because they're getting paid regardless. They're getting paid really good regardless, and there's no point. Like the stat, like we need people that actually do what the particular job intended, like the petition, what the job um description was intended to do, right? It was like, okay, you're supposed to represent the people. You're supposed to have town halls. You're supposed to represent what the people that want, right? The people in your district, what do they want? People in your state or whatever you're representing, what do they want? You're supposed to be advocating for them. You're not supposed to be advocating for yourself. You're not supposed to be advocating for your party. Like that's not your fucking job. Your job is to advocate for the people that you represent. Uh, and I will say, uh, Kirsten Cinema, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people gave her shit on Twitter for doing her thumbs down on the $15 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and she did it all cute with a fucking bag or whatever. Then people gave her shit for her bag, like she carried her purse with her or whatever, and it was like whatever. But um, yes, she's a Democrat, but I actually respect her. Believe it or not, I actually respect her because she's going across the political aisle on quite a few things. Like look, the $15 an hour thing. That like they went against that. Like, yeah, she went against that. She went against the party on that. Right?
8
She gave a
Democrats
thumbs
actually
down.
went against. I just found out.
Right. Right. Um so this is what I'm saying. There's that, and she's done that a couple of times. She's gone against the grain a couple of times. Um Joe Manchin too. I think. I mean, yeah. I mean, there. Do I like Democrats? No, but there's some that I actually there that are, you know, somewhat respectable in nature. And I gotta say, Joe Manchin's probably one of them, because he at least, he's in, like, he represents West Virginia, which, you know, you better go across the aisle there if you think you're going to be a Democrat running in a pretty red state. Uh,
Yeah. You're
where
gonna have to act
yeah,
like a
I
Republican.
mean,
And another person that does actually
yeah.
this very well, which
So
people wouldn't suspect, is Matt Gaetz. He multiple times has voted not with his Republican colleagues and also voted against Trump. And he's a very outspoken Trump supporter, and Trump knows this and loves him. But he voted for oh god, I sneeze at the worst times. He voted
bless you.
for legal or decriminalizing marijuana, which most
Mhm,
Republicans are against, and he also voted against a defense bill that Trump was pushing. And
mhm,
he's a Republican. He's from Florida, and I give him credit for it because it shows me that while he and I probably agree on 99% things, where we have differences, where we don't, whatever, or
mhm,
who we support and don't, he will still stick with what he believes in. And there are times when he
mhm,
knows he has to compromise or do things for the greater good, blah, blah, blah. And there are times where he will just stick to it and be like, I just can't vote for that in my conscience. This is not what people like me to
mhm,
do. So I like that. And I think the 15 minimum wage thing got shot down. I don't know if it
mhm.
did yet, but
Yep.
I could because that's just so stupid. But they're gonna keep trying these things. They're gonna
Mhm,
start moving for like DC
mhm,
statehood or Puerto Rico statehood. I think Puerto Rico is more likely. But they're gonna start doing things like that. So
mhm.
it's just gonna keep
Well, I mean,
happening.
I mean, a lot of this stuff that they're not going to be able, like, they're not going to be able to get away with it. I don't think, because, like, especially with the HR1, because a lot of that stuff that, uh, in order to do a lot of what they're trying to do is like, you you can't just do it via a bill, right? Like with the HR1, like a large chunk of that stuff is just unconstitutional. Like if it goes to a Supreme Court, it's going to get struck down because, again, you don't have the ability. Like with HR1, that's like the voting reform or whatever. Uh, it's unconstitutional. Like, you don't. Congress does not have the authority to make a lot of those voting decisions. A lot of those voting decisions go to the state legislatures. Get like this is what we're talking, like.
Well, even before it gets passed, it's not gonna get through a Republican-controlled Senate.
Yeah.
Unconstitutional or not, it's not even gonna get. to that level.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when's the last time Democrats cared about the Constitution?
Yeah.
But speaking of the Supreme Court, didn't they not they oh, this was I think last week. They ruled that Trump's that they could I think New York could look into Trump's tax returns. That was a
Mhm.
weird one for me. I don't get
Mhm.
that because
Well,
I think Barrett and uh, I think all the Trump appointees said that they could do that. The only one, the guy that dissent, I think, was Clarence Thomas. I didn't understand that ruling. I mean, I'm no lawyer, so I don't get this shit, but that was weird.
I don't. I don't know. I don't know enough about. I don't know enough about the whole tax return thing, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. I mean, I'm like if I'm always one of those people. I think it's one of those things where I'm like they probably should do it in the name of transparency. However,
I
those
honestly
tra-
think none
those
of them should. I think it's just
the but
ridiculous.
but here's where I veer back. Um, I would be for transparency if these tax returns were honest because I don't think that they're honest. I think there's a lot that goes on within a person's finance that really doesn't get put on a tax return. Um, so you're not really necessarily getting an honest tax return anyway. So it's like, well, why would I want to see it if I know that these politicians are full of shit anyway, even from the Democrat side. Like, Democrats are bullshitting everything. Like, why would I mean, to me, it's like I just don't care. I don't care enough about it just because I know how dishonest this shit is. So
Well, I number one don't really. I think there's three things. Well, number one, I personally think, yeah, I guess a lot of people really don't care too much about tax returns unless it's something really, really egregious. But number two is most people try to pay less taxes than they want to. I mean, nobody wants to pay more in
mhm,
taxes. And
yeah.
these business people and these politicians, anybody that's rich and powerful, is going to look for every loophole, every way to get around it. And number three, because of that, when it's presented to the public, most people don't understand what it means. I don't
Mhm,
understand what it means. Most people don't when they see they didn't pay X, Y, and Z, or they paid this, they didn't pay that. You really don't understand it, and it gives like a false perception of what's really going on in these things, I think, to most
mhm,
people. So I just say, like, look, it's your taxes. That should be between you and the government. I don't think
mhm.
anybody else has any business in seeing that.
But
It's like the whole, because it's a private matter. It's like anything that's private. And,
mhm.
it's, I'm all for transparency too,
Not only that,
except with stuff like, like certain things like this, I just don't see any benefit to.
yeah, and not only that, a lot of this is selectively enforced anyway. Like I'm
Yeah.
not I like I look at I look at the like the insider trading. Like people Congress are they can participate in insider trading, right? Because it's not enforced. I mean, it's supposed to be illegal, but nobody's
Exactly.
enforcing it. So
Yep.
like, you know, they can essentially commit insider trading, and like that's why you see a lot of these. That's part in part correction why
Hmm.
you get a lot of these you get a lot of these politicians that end up becoming rich in a matter of a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like
You notice how they
you,
always
you
come
know,
in and poor and then they come out rich? Isn't it funny how that happens?
yeah, it's just crazy to me. To me, like you, I mean, to me, uh, I'm more and more leaning on the. I'm leaning toward the opinion that the United States government, in terms of Congress,
Hmm.
might be the most corrupt in the world. I'm
I
starting
wouldn't
to
say
lean in
that
that
because we have
direction.
China and North Korea, but I will
I
say
do,
it's
yeah.
not as, you know, I think they do the most in terms of like cover. Well, actually, other than North Korea, they do like the most in covering up their bullshit. Like they're acting like they're so good. Um, because here's what I always think: if you think it's bad here, imagine what it's like in South America. Imagine what's like in China. Imagine what's like in North Korea.
But it's like, well, what? Well, so you look at the yeah, like even when you look at like the South American, like all those fucking narcos countries and shit, like what's what's different about them than here?
Well, I'd
Really?
say
Like
one of
if
the
you
big.
look at it from,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean?
Well, I'd say one of the big things is specifically the drug trade. These drug lords will buy off politicians. They'll buy off the cops to let literal murder, like mass murderers, out of jail. Like
So
known drug killers out of jail. Whereas when El Chapo comes to America, we put him away. We deal with him
so how do you know that shit isn't happening here?
because well, I think it can happen, but it's obviously not happening to the same level. Because like El Chapo
How
is
do
a
you
great
know?
example. El Chapo.
How how do you know? Well, I mean El Chapo, like so with El Chapo, is it is it for the right reasons or is it for the wrong reasons? Is it for
Well, what would
motivate?
the
Like, what
wrong
are the
reasons
motivations?
be?
What are the motivations behind putting El Chapo away?
He's a threat to America, and putting him away would look good for the
So
people that
why?
do.
Uh, in what way in what way is he deemed? In what way is he deemed a threat to the U.S. government, according to the U.S. government?
Well, he's not necessarily a threat to the government per se. I'd say he's a threat to national security by
But what?
shipping
Okay,
drugs
so
in, shipping
this is what I'm
weapons
saying.
in.
This is what I'm saying. We don't know. This is what I'm trying to get at. We don't really know. Is El Chapo a horrible person and should he be put away? Sure, but what's the motivation behind it? Because because our our criminal justice system is just as selective as everybody else's. It's selective. Selective. We let we've let some of the worst people in the world off the hook, but we'll clamp down on others, right? It's like, okay, so the war, so is it so the with the war on drugs, are we going after these narcos countries because it's the right thing to do and they're peddling this dangerous shit on the streets, or is it because pharmaceutical companies have their fucking stake in what's going on with, what people are ingesting in their body? Because I mean, keep in mind, over the last 30 years, pharmaceutical companies have donated what, $3 trillion to political campaigns
Oh yeah,
over
well
the
they
last
were
30
doing
years.
shit where they were keeping pill mills open to basically fuel the opioid
Yeah,
crisis. Like I know there
yeah,
are a lot of that. Like don't get me
yeah.
wrong, I get your point, but my point is that like yeah, it happens here, but it's not as bad as other countries. Is it a lot better? No. I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have. They think
How do you
America
know?
is
How do you know
way.
it's better? Well, what do you define as better? What how do you do, and how do you know that one is better
I
than the
mean, that's
other? Like, why do
subjective. That's the best way I'd say it
exactly
is that
exactly? This is what I'm saying. Like we don't know. Like there's no there like I can't honestly say that we are more or less corrupt than they are. I can't.
I
I can't.
guess. I mean, I personally can't say that because I think there are some clear differences, but I can see that. Like if you look at a country like let's say, Iraq or Afghanistan, I'd say we're a bit better than those places. We still do some shady bad shit. I mean, you look at the history of the CIA, and you'd think we're the worst country in the world. But then you look at the history of the Mossad, or you look at the history of any, secret agency or intelligence agency, and it's like, they all have these types of histories. Just I think ours just is the thing too with America too is that what's really I think what keeps us a little bit better than most countries and this is getting, of course, fucked with in many ways, is number one, we have been built on a constitution, a solid constitution, and a solid Bill of Rights with actual civil liberties and freedoms. The problem now is, like, I think a great example is the quote unquote free market. Obviously, in concept and theory, it's perfect, it's wonderful, it's fabulous. But you don't have a free market when big tech companies can take you off. When you try making all social media and you're all AWS pulls your plug, or even when you are independent, you can't get PayPal to work with you. You have to do things through crypto. You have to build your own shit. Your app gets banned from the App Store. It's like there's like now more of a, these other forces, external, other, I don't want to say external, but other forces that are kind of messing with the system that we're supposed to have. It's like politics. It's supposed to be this good system, but money is obviously the biggest, force that's messing with the whole system. And I think it only changes when you get populist people in there and hoping that they don't get corrupted. I think, like, that's why I've always been for term limits, is because I've heard people that are like, well, I like this person, I want to keep them as long as possible. And I always think, you say that now and they've only been in there for 2 years. But will you say that when they're in there for 15 years? Because power inevitably corrupts. And that's what I like about somebody like Nigel Farage, who went into this thing, got out. That's how it should be. How it should be, it's a public service where you get in, you do your thing, and you leave. That's it. When you stay there any longer than like a term or two, I think that's bad. And some of these people get corrupted even within their term, their first term.
Well, I'm also I think a large reason why things have gone awry over the last 20 years is the politicization of many of these institutions that are supposed to be apolitical,
Yeah.
like the FBI, like the CIA, like all these other things that have just been politicized. They should not be. Like, they should be apolitical, and they just go wherever the fuck they're what the information takes them. Like, instead, like, you look at this last election. We were hearing reports that Trump was going to fire Christopher Wray if he got reelected. Um, Joe Biden was like, I'm going to keep Christopher Wray.
Yeah.
How do you think he's going to behave? How do you think he's
Yeah.
going to behave after that?
Well, did you see that hearing recently where he was
Yeah,
talking about the Capitol riots? Oh my God, I
this is
wanted to
not
puke.
this is not a surprise. This is not a surprise. When you look at what was going down over the last year, it should be no surprise, right? And that is the scary part. Um, it's being like, our institutions are compromised. They're compromised. Our
Yeah.
judges are compromised via political partisanship. Like, judges should not be fucking politicized. They should be, like, you look at Roger Stone, right? Who was in charge of that? Who was in charge of that trial? Fucking Obama appointed liberal judge, right? What do you think? What do you think was gonna fucking happen? The like, it wasn't gonna look good. I mean, just his trial was gonna look like a witch hunt, and we all knew it. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on around. Look, like the Harvard, when they were getting sued by Asian Americans for discrimination, it was a legitimate discrimination. Like, they were discriminating against Asians, because really, if you were going to base acceptance off of academics, obviously a large chunk of Harvard University would be fucking Asian, right? But, you know, when they sued him, that was when the suit happened, it was thrown out by an Obama appointed judge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is our our legal our justice system is royally compromised now. I don't know how you fix it. I'm not sure how the hell you fix it.
Yeah.
uh yeah,
I think
that's the scary part for me.
Yeah, that's been the biggest. Like the FBI and CIA are the like. Actually, I'll say the CIA is one of those things where I've like heard like that they've done crazy stuff, and the more I looked into them, I realized like yeah, they've been always insane. The FBI was one of those where I was kind of like, well, it looks like it's just getting corrupt now. And I look into it, and I look from the very beginning, it was literally a corrupt institution. So I'm like, I guess not much has changed. It's just it's only gotten worse. But the courts is one that honestly, I think that's the one recently has turned like corrupt. So it's crazy.
Well, I mean, it's scary because part of what makes any system work is its ability to enforce
Yeah.
that system. Because, like, if it, like corruption, right? If nobody enforces corruption, it's going to continue and it's going to get worse, right? It's just going to happen. Like, what can I get away with? Oh, I can get away with anything? Then I will do anything, right? Um, we have to understand that. Like, you know, this is why our Congress is as corrupt as it is. It's because nobody's going to enforce it. Nobody's going to enforce it. And that is bad. That is a bad thing. Like, which part of part of what made like part of what I always thought made America's legal system awesome was the fact that like President Nixon's resignation, right? For me, that was like incredible from a legal perspective. Like the leader of the free world resigned and not a single shot was fucking fired. Like that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Like, you know, like, but now it's like, well, I mean, you've got people that are just like yo, you got people that are insider trading. You've got the fucking you've got who the fuck is it? You got the House member that was banging the fucking Chinese spy, Eric Swalwell. You got that guy who was banging a Chinese spy, and he's still on the intelligence committee. Like, what the fuck is wrong with
I
us?
know.
Like,
That one
like
was
this,
one too,
like,
and nobody said a peep about it when it broke. It's like, oh, okay, that happened. Anyway, the weather looks very terrible for next week. It's like, you know, because there's certain stories too. Like the Cuomo thing's a good example. It's so bad. It's so you can't look away that even the left wing media talks about the Swalwell one. They wouldn't touch it. Like they might briefly talk about it, but they just really wouldn't touch it more than they had to, you know? With
yeah.
Cuomo, too, I don't know if you followed that, but I think a total of like 3 women have accused him. And he
Mm-hmm.
says he's not stepping down, he's going to stay in, which, in his position, even though I think he's a total dirtbag, why should he step down? Because there, there's not going to be any consequences against him unless they impeach him, which I don't know if you can do that to a governor. I would assume you could, but I think politically he made the right move. Um, but I think
Dude,
it's
how by the way, that he's not stepping down. Look, how corrupt you're talking about New York and the Cuomo family. Like that you're talking about multi-generational corruption. Holy shit, the Cuomo family? Good God. Like just what a mess. What a fucking mess.
how
Um
bad is it? Because I don't know much about his
there's all
family.
kinds of like his dad, their dad Mario Cuomo was fucking dirty as hell. Like, yo, lots of ties to like the mob and shit. Like,
Oh
yo, there's like
God,
yeah, I mean, it was just shady, greasy shit going down. Um well, okay. Uh there's a bridge. There's a bridge. Uh the Tappan Zee Bridge, right? Uh which is like one of the bridges from New Jersey to New York or whatever. Um It was one of the main one of the bridges, that connects those two. Uh, that it was named after the it was named after Native Americans, right? That the Dutch, the Dutch, honored, right? So fucking Cuomo, or the current Cuomo, decided to rebuild a bridge, and name it the Mario Cuomo Bridge. Like fuck the Native Americans. It's all about my pop. Like it's dirt. I mean, it's a level of. I mean, I know that's not that big from a corruption standpoint, but it's just something like you know, like you could tell it's like a "fuck you, I'm in charge" kind of thing, and screw everybody else. Just like not only that, it's just like the bravado that he gives, like with his
In those
press conferences, and
briefings.
it's just like those briefings, the are just absolutely just I don't know. I'm like,
It's like a theater stage for him.
you got to be fucking kidding me. Like,
Well, the thing too is you always got to remember two things: trad people, fake; male feminists, biggest rapists. It's always the case. When has it been wrong? When has this? This is like the easiest predictor now. Like, oh, they say they're male feminists. Okay, rapists. It's like you just gotta wait, and eventually it'll come out. And with him, I was just surprised at the timing. The timing of it I think is interesting. But he won. I checked this because I thought it was just a punchline and jokes. He legit won a freaking Emmy for his daily briefings. He won an Emmy.
yeah.
They love this guy,
Well,
and
I
he's
mean,
been
let's be
torn
let's be
apart.
real. Okay, let's be real. Okay, these these uh these award shows mean nothing anymore. Like, yeah, we're
They never
like
have.
the world now knows that these award shows mean absolutely nothing. Why do you think nobody watches them anymore? One, it's because obviously it's because of the woke culture, but two, it's because nobody sees these things as legitimate anymore. They don't see them as legitimate uh awards. It's like a whoever these are like a pay to play kind of thing. Um, like they're for sale. And I was seeing something about how these like 4 year, like with the Golden Globes, it's like a 4 year consideration stuff. It's just like basically a bidding war for who gets an award,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And yeah, no, I mean nobody cares. Nobody cares anymore. It's like I don't know. It's getting pretty ridiculous. And outside of Con, I really don't pay attention to too many awards ceremonies or whatever, but
Yeah, I never did because I've always thought that they were just kind of stupid. Because when you'd see what would win, I'd always be like, well, this thing's either rigged or these critics, quote unquote critics, don't know what they're talking about. So I've never had an interest in awards ever for anything. But the interesting thing with the Cuomo one, too, is that not only were there allegations, but there are pictures, and it's disturbing. Like he's like grabbing this woman's face, and you can tell she's like terrified. I'm like, is this Al Franken all over again? I mean, Al Franken had to resign, but he isn't resigning. But it's pretty bad for him.
mm,
Like I believe it. I believe most of these allegations, but I have to say, I wonder why they're coming out now. I wonder who's really pushing for this to happen.
mm.
But yeah, those are the biggest stories that have been popping around. But another thing, more cultural news, is that you saw a movie today. Do you want to tell us about your lovely experience?
I okay, so I saw this could run on a little bit because
That's
it's
fine.
very
I'll let you have the
it's
floor.
very it's very well, it could. I don't know. I haven't decided how far this thing's gonna go yet. But anyway, um, yikes! I'm trying to fidget my stuff because anyway, so I, like many people, uh, decided to watch the Coming to America sequel because I have Amazon Prime. I'm sorry, America. And I watched it because I like. Okay, so Eddie Murphy is one of my favorite comedians. One of my favorite comedians of all time. To me, he's probably one of my he may very well be my favorite comedian of all time. And I have a list of them. You know, you got Richard Pryor, you got Dave Chappelle, you got all the well, Louis C.K., you got George Carlin.
That's
You've got
probably
a
my
lot of them.
favorite.
You've got a lot of them. Um, for me, Eddie Murphy is up there just because, if not the guy, because I mean, his stand-ups were so good.
Oh
I mean, they
yeah,
were so good.
he's extremely
And
funny.
and he's just funny, and he's just
Yeah,
off the cuff. He's just naturally a funny individual. And even on his interviews are funny. Even as like when he goes on Saturday Night Live, it's funny. Like that his Saturday Night Live was probably the funniest I've seen in a long,
his return.
long, long. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
loved
was
it.
the funniest one I've seen in a long, long time, like probably years.
It
Um,
made me, as somebody who obviously didn't grow up on the OG Saturday Night Live, go, so this is what it was like back then when this thing was
yeah,
actually good.
yeah,
This is awesome.
right, y- yeah. Um, so in anyway, so I watched and I watched coming the first Coming to America when I was little. Funny movie. One of the funniest movies I think I've ever seen. I still give reference to it. I still give references to it to this day. Uh, and so I was like, okay, all right. Well, I hate sequels. I hate when they do sequels after a long awaited like fucking long after the original. And I think this was like 33 years after the original. So already I was in the back of my mind, I was thinking, "Oh fuck, this is gonna be bad." But I owe it to Eddie Murphy to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's one of the funniest people, arguably ever. So I watched it, and it wasn't that good. Yeah, my logical. I should have listened to that logical side of my brain, but now, I first off, what I mean, w- I- I'll give a little bit of a spoiler alert. Okay, um, so one of the main storylines pieces of the storyline is that Eddie Murphy has a or replays his role as Prince Akeem, Prince of Zamunda. Um, he has an illegitimate son from Queens. Um, and because he doesn't have any uh sons, that illegitimate son is by Zamunda law the rightful heir to the kingdom of Zamunda, right? Um so the so what they tell you is so part of the storyline is that during the first Coming to America, when he was trying to sow his royal oats or find his bride or whatever, uh, him and his sidekick, played by Arsenio Hall, um, they went to a club. They went to a club in New York and they found all these weird uh weird women who were trying to, like, I guess they were, they were chatting up. But uh his his sidekick, I forget what his sidekick's name is. You know what? This looks like a job for Google. All right. Let me see here.
Do 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 do
R.I.P.
do.
Alex Trebek. All right.
What?
You will be missed.
What's that song from?
Uh oh, Semi. Right, there you go. So so during the so during the club, right, Semi meets this girl uh who agrees um to sleep with Prince Akeem. So they go back to the apartment, and the lady, played by Leslie Jones, proceeds to smoke something, right? To smoke some, whatever it was, and then blow it in Eddie Murphy's face, or Prince Akeem's face, therefore making him under the influence, and then proceeds to have sex with him.
Oh God.
Right.
Spike.
So
No God.
yeah, so basically the illegitimate son was uh was conceived via drug and date rape. Like, and so right away the storyline, I'm like, wow. First off, how did Amazon just let this happen? Like, and you look at like, yeah, how did it? Because it's like rated PG-13 and all that great. Like, I'm like,
Freaking rape. Hashtag me
did I,
too.
like, what? Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy to me. Um, and I'm thinking, okay, so if the roles were reversed and Prince Akeem did that to Leslie Jones, like, you're gone. Like, there's no way this ever gets on the platform ever. Um, but here we are. So already bad vibes, right? And then, so I was like, I blew it off. So I was like, okay, like, um, I tried to blow it off, and like, I'm like, all right. But then I listen, like, it's not really that funny. Like, the first Coming to America was funny. It was funny. Um, and there was a couple scenes in the sequel that were like light chuckle, maybe, but like not funny. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like a funny, you could tell, like, there's a light chuckle. Oh, that's a cute little chuckle worthy. And then there's funny, right? There's nothing funny really in this movie. Like, there was
Mm-hmm.
cute chuckle moments, not like funny.
Yeah.
And it was like there's just holes all over the storyline. I'm like, and don't get me, like, so Eddie Murphy brought a lot of the chuckle moments or whatever, and he surprised he reprised some of his roles, you know like with the barbershop, and and he had the band, like he had the wedding singer, or not the wedding singer, but like the band or whatever, where he played the lead singer, and it was like a, yeah, dude in a Jerry curl. It was fun. I mean, it was cute, but like, it wasn't like, I don't know, it was just like,
Well, those sort of things, that seems to be just the biggest trend with any sequel, any prequel, any reboot, anything that's connected to something is, haha, remember this from the original? Oh, you love that? Here it is again. These, they always call it Easter eggs or retreads. I call it just cheap, like, moments. They're just cheap. And I'm not saying to trash this because I haven't seen it, so I don't have an opinion of it. But like, usually when I see that now, like, there are some times where I'll like it and I'm like, okay, whatever. Movie, especially the movies like mostly like original and good. I will always excuse those almost always, but
Mhm.
like good examples of new Star Wars movies when you see those cheap moments like they did it twice in the sequel trilogy showing the freaking hologram chessboard. I'm like, stop, just stop. Like, I get it, it's cute, yeah, it's in the original, okay, fine, just stop. It's so cheap. It's like, how dumb do you think I am as a viewer? It feels degrading sometimes. Like, I don't know how, like, this sounds like this was done more tastefully in this movie, but in other movies, it's just done so much that's like, ugh, you know? It becomes like they use it like it's a prop.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there was a few ties that were like, all right, that were cute. They were
Yeah.
cute. They weren't like, you know, it wasn't necessarily funny. Oh, one thing that pissed me off, fucking, they had um they had ZNN,
Oh, for
Zamunda News
CNN?
Network, and they had the lead correspondent on ZNN was fucking Trevor Noah, which I'm like,
Ew.
they brought that unfunny fucker on the movie. Oh my god.
He must
Like,
have written half the movie then.
I mean, yeah, well, I mean, no, he doesn't. What, Trevor Noah doesn't write his own
Oh,
shit.
that's true. Yeah, he
Get the
probably didn't
fuck
even
out of here, man. Yeah, he's got he's got at least 10 writers on his own shitty show. Like, what, are you
and they
kidding me?
still can't make him
They
funny.
still can't make him funny. Yeah, he's just awful.
That's the difference too between people like Eddie Murphy and like Trevor Noah. Is like I get like Jay Leno for example. He was somebody that yeah he has team of writers, but he was still a funny person. You could see in the interviews. Eddie Murphy's somebody who wrote his own shit, who performs his own shit, and is his own shit. Like he is funny. Like you said, it's always in the interviews is when you can tell.
Yeah,
Is when somebody is just genuinely naturally
yeah.
talented, funny.
Trevor Noah's not funny. Like,
No, he's so unfunny.
you if you laugh at anything Trevor Noah, you probably laugh to like keys being jingled in your face. Like,
Or you're laughing at him for being such an idiot.
like, I'm just like, it's just not there. I don't know.
What
But
happened?
in any case, it was like, I mean, it was just, and it was, and it did have like a, a bit of, it had a bit of socially uh
Relevant?
social type stuff where it's like, oh well, you know where they do away with the whole the man takes over as king of Zamunda or whatever. They get over the royal stuff and then let the oldest daughter be the queen when he passes or something. I like, this is just dumb, and like, I don't know, it just like, which a okay, whatever, you want to make that into a storyline, okay, but like, I don't know, but if that's all you had, like,
Yeah.
if
Nothing
that's
else
all
makes
you
up for
have,
it.
it's just a shitty movie because
Mm-hmm.
it's been done before. It's literally, it's been done, that storyline's been done before. It's not like I've seen it. I've seen, like, yo, show me something interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know.
What do you think went wrong with it? You
What
know?
didn't go what didn't go wrong with the movie? I don't think it should have been done. I just don't think it should have been done because there's not like, I don't know if there's a real storyline that could have been had.
But even then, what I'm saying is like, let's say the story isn't all there, which, I think is always the inevitable problem for a lot of sequels. But it could have, like, especially with the talent, it could have at least been funny. So what I'm wondering is what went wrong behind the scenes where it not only was the story bad, but it wasn't funny, and seemed like it just nobody tried. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know.
Well, when the story's bad, then it really fucks it up for everything else. Like
Hmm.
generally, if the storyline is not funny or interesting, then it's really not worth. Like you can't really feed off of that because like you look at the. I'm trying to give a good. Uh, I'm trying to give a funny movie like an example, right? Okay, Old School, right? Old School. Like I don't know if you've seen Old School,
I've
but in
not.
Old School, the pretense of the movie was uh guy leaves his wife cheats on him, finds out she's having, you know, she's going on the internet to look for people to cheat on him with. He moves on. He moves to a place on campus and they throw a huge party. They get kicked out by the dean. They so in order to combat that, they start their own fraternity that is open to all ages and all that shit. Like that's a funny plot line, right? There's a lot of ways you can go with that. There's a lot of hilarious ways that you can go along with something like that.
Hmm.
And you give talented people like Vince Vaughn and Will Ferrell and Sean William Scott and all these guys, you give those people that kind of plot line and they can do things with it, right? That sets them up for success. Like I could run with that.
Yeah.
Like I can't run with illegitimate son and queens and like date rape. Like some people already like yeah, and I'm sorry that look, the date rape thing that pushes people away quick, like from a
Mm.
funny standpoint, because when you're like, oh, that's just fucking that's not funny, that's just fucked up. Like I don't know, like, and so you're kind of like, well, ooh, like it just doesn't. There's holes in the story. There's holes in the storyline already, and you're just like, I don't know. It's the story was bad in itself. Um, but I mean, it's one of those things. But I don't think that Eddie Murphy uh wrote the storyline to it either. Hold on.
Yeah, I
What
was
am I
looking into
messing
that
up with?
too because that's where I was trying to find my answer of what went wrong. And I don't think he wrote the. Oh no, he did do the original for the sequel. Supposedly it says story by, but he didn't write the
Yeah.
screenplay.
Yeah. So story by let's see here. Hold on. So it was produced by Eddie Murphy. But the screenplay, not the story, based off of characters.
Oh,
So
that's what you're getting from. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I think I think that makes sense too, um because it's not like Eddie
Oh
Murphy
yeah.
can't.
Because
Because
I'm
it's not
looking
like Eddie.
actually for more context. There's actually a good chart on Wikipedia. They were both different directors. They had two of the screenwriters from the original, both of them actually, because there was actually they had a third one on. Apparently, they need another one for the sequel. But like you said, the story was not done by Eddie Murphy this time. That was the difference.
Mhm. And I just I don't know. Hmm. I felt like there was just a lot left to be desired. And I mean, like, I
Oh,
look, and it's not like Eddie Murphy can't pull off really good movies. He's pulled off really good movies. The Nutty Professor was hilarious,
mm-hmm.
hilarious. The second one was hilarious.
Even when
Actually, I
he's in
think all three
Shrek,
of
he's
them.
hilarious.
Like what? Yeah, I think like all the Nutty Professors were freaking hilarious. I'm like, and I'm just thinking like, I don't know. It's I don't know. I it was definitely a letdown, but Ugh. There's something to talk about, I guess. I mean, at least
Yeah.
there's something to talk about. I don't know. I felt like, and nobody's talking about it. I know Jack Posobiec mentioned it, like with the whole date rape thing, and because of that, he got blocked by Leslie Jones.
Well, when she told me she was in the movie, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense now.
Yeah,
Now I see. It's like she's a curse. Every movie she's in is just terrible. Everything she does is unfunny. She's awful.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, like,
She just seems like somebody that honestly she thinks screaming is funny, so she just screams more. She's like, "Am I funny? I'm just gonna
she's
scream louder."
she had a couple good look. She had a couple good skits on Saturday Night Live, but like no, that kind of I don't know, that kind of huge, like you need something else like that I don't know. It's some when that's all you have, like your personality, that's all you have. Eventually, people are just going to get tired of it.
Well, it's because
Like
it's
it's
such a
not going to.
crutch, you know. Like
Yeah.
there are certain shticks that every comedian has, and that's fine. I'm honestly one of those people. Maybe it's unpopular opinion. I don't have a problem with shticks as long as you keep reinventing it, doing something new with it, or bringing new shticks. It's fine. I don't have a problem with it. What I have problems is when that shtick becomes a crutch, and then because that's when you become unfunny. You know, it's just like okay, I've heard that before. You know, same. It becomes a trope that's unfunny. Like there's a difference between repetition and a trope, in my opinion. But and it shows too. Like when you don't have the right people behind the scenes working on shit, it can just be a disaster. And I think you're right. Yeah, it was the story. Seeing Eddie Murphy did the original one made the difference because they had when you see too that they had to bring on a third screenwriter, that's not good. I love the joke that like CinemaSins would make whenever they'd review like a bad movie. They'd be like, "It took like four freaking screenwriters to make this garbage," and it's a good point because it shows like, yeah, I get why there are multiple people involved and maybe more the merrier. I don't know, but when you see that there's like a lot of people and it's still bad, I'm just like, oh man, none of these
Well, at
people must
least
be any
okay.
good.
So at least one of the screenwriters is going to be on there for politically correct purposes.
Mm.
Usually, usually speaking. Um, like making sure that everything is copacetic, like they make sure they got all their politically correct stuff, they don't piss off the Chinese, that sort of shit. um but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, the like it didn't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it didn't feel like Eddie Murphy had the kind of creative control that he
Yeah.
normally has in movies, and maybe that could have had a profound effect on the quality of the movie, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think, because that's really why I was asking what went wrong, is because it's not like he himself has gone downhill and has, which I don't know how it can happen, but some people, I guess, can become unfunny or they lose their spark. He clearly hasn't. When you see like the SNL return, he's still Eddie Murphy. He's still got it. You know? I mean, that's what I think when I saw the SNL thing. My take was like, yep, he's still got it. It's still great. But, now it's just like when you see how much this movie's getting ripped, I think, yeah, he probably didn't have as much input as he wanted to. That's my guess. It's my guess. As somebody who hasn't seen it, it's my guess. But when he was on SNL, that shit was freaking amazing. Like when he brought back the Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood and upgraded to modern times. I mean, that was just funny. That's a good example of taking something that became a shtick of his, but he did something new with it that was funny. Or when he did the thing, I think it was like a Thanksgiving sketch on there. That was really good too. Like, he knows what to do and he knows how to do it really well. Like he is He's amazing. I think he's a little bit underappreciated by my generation because he's not, one of the newer, hotter comedians on the block, but he's just been around so long and just consistently, like you said, put out amazing work. Like, you can't say the guy has had, like, a period where he just was terrible. Like, I don't think that existed.
Mm. Yeah, let's see, the Rotten Tomato. I don't give a shit about the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, although
It was
52
50-50, and the audience score, I think, was
52%,
lower. Yeah.
yeah, 52% with 5.5 out of 10, something along those lines.
Don't you have, like, a
Anyway,
love-hate relationship
not
with
that I
Rotten
give a shit about
Tomatoes?
Rotten
Like, I...
Tomatoes because it's like it's owned by Comcast. Well,
Yeah.
it's owned by Warner Brothers and Comcast, so I'm not like yeah, I mean obviously they're not going to sabotage their own product.
I have such
Um
a love-hate relationship with it because I love that you can just kind of quickly, like, figure out, like, is this worth seeing? Not if it's like... I think the mistake people do is they will be like, oh, well, this movie's got 91% Rotten Tomatoes, whereas this one's got 80%. The 91% one must be better. It's like, well, one, these scores are all, inflated or deflated, but the percentage doesn't represent its quality, it represents the amount of people that liked it. So what I do love about the system is it's a quick way to be like, is this going to be worth it? Will I like it? What's the, if I see something that's fresh back, I'll probably like it. Maybe I won't. There's a lot that I don't, a lot that I do. But what I hate with it is that not only the thing that I mentioned where people treat it like a quality meter, but it's like, dude, it's rigged. It rigs and it messes with you.
mhm.
It psychologically manipulates you.
Yeah. I looked at it like when I was on Prime and I was getting ready to see it, and I was like, already it has 3.5 stars, which I know is like yikes for me, is yikes, because I know that Amazon pumps the shit out of those fucking their own material.
They do.
So so yeah, I mean, like, if it's 3.5 stars right now, probably way worse in reality. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like, yeah, it just wasn't good. I don't know. I,
Did you ever see, because I keep getting recommended this, did you ever see The Queen's Gambit?
yes,
What'd you
I
think
did.
of it?
It wasn't bad. It actually wasn't bad. I mean, of course, me being the critical fucker that I am, um,
I can be pretty
I was,
critical too.
yeah, yeah. I was thinking, okay, so basically the premise of the story is, uh, get get involved in something and do drugs, and you'll be a star. Like, is that what you're trying to tell me? Like, yeah, you're
Mm,
because part of what made her, yeah, like she got into chess and then did some fucking pharmaceutical farm meds
Big
to
Pharma.
keep her going, and then like, and that's how she ended up being as good as she did. Like, like, I'm like, well, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's interesting how drugs are portrayed in films. Like, I remember when I watched, like, Wolf of Wall Street, there were people that were like, oh, it glorifies drug use. I'm like, did you see the last, like, hour of that movie? Like, it did not. It shows, like, how drugs can be a high, no pun intended. And inevitably, when you're addicted, there's going to be what comes up comes down. There's going to be a crash, and it's going to be bad, really bad. But I'm trying to think of anything else I've seen recently because I haven't really been watching much because I've been job searching all day, and then at night, like, doing shit on the computer or gaming a little bit because I'm trying to finish up this Deus Ex game or playing piano. But I've been seeing, like, with my dad, like, they've been playing the old Miami Vices, and I've been seeing, like, an episode per night,
Yeah.
which has been
I think
interesting.
I'm sticking to a lot of the old school stuff too.
Mm.
Like, I'm just like, for
I've always
me,
generally liked older stuff more, but I kind of am always like I'm always trying to like see these important, culturally important things,
Uh-huh.
or just things that I know are good or have heard
Yeah.
been good. I'm just like, yeah, like Coming to America is a great example. I know people that just rave about, and it's like so important to them, and they like talk about how wonderful it is. I'm like, I haven't seen it. I need to see this.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I try to stick to the older stuff as much as I can, just because, I just don't. I don't know. A lot of the stuff that comes out now is just mm, too saturated with, like, like the comedy stuff isn't really all that funny,
Yeah.
and like I can watch older stuff and still laugh. Like I get more laughs watching the older stuff again than I do watching
Mm.
anything new. Like, which is kind of sad, but like like I could still forget, like, old school. I can still watch old school and fucking laugh. Like it's like funny shit. And like I, I think um I think there's just something, and of course the political stuff. It's just like the heavy political stuff too is just, it's too much. It's just too much. I'm like, ugh.
Well, that's the thing
You
too.
just,
Is like when you watch anything older, you can almost you guarantee it's not there. There's no woke shit. But with now, it's like it's a toss up. You're like, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like the one thing, like when I was like why I like watching too with older stuff is getting a sense of what it was like to live in 1964, what it was like to live in 1984. I always find that just interesting. Like that's the really interesting thing about Miami Vice is that it's peak 80s, like peak Florida 80s. And I find it just very interesting seeing what things used to be like and seeing where things have come from. Because we're used to shows that have pop music in. We're used to shows with, flashy cars and cop shows. But that all kind of started with Miami Vice. They were the ones that innovate a lot of that. And, as the boomers would say, kids these days, you know, didn't grow up on that. So I'm like, it's interesting seeing that sort of stuff. And there's stuff that ages, of course. Like, there are moments where you can tell the acting was like, sometimes it's like, it's weird because they'll sometimes be like extremely good. And then there are times they'll be like, man, that line reading was rough. It's interesting. But I mean, there's still some stuff that comes out today, like that I'm really interested in seeing. Even like the Top Gun sequel, I'm not the biggest fan of the original, but I know it's gonna be a bold claim, but I think the second one might actually be better than the original, based on what I've seen from those trailers. Who knows? So I'm like, I'm interested in that, but other shit, I'm just like, oh, another Marvel movie? Yeah, don't care.
yeah.
But I feel because every time I watch a new movie, I always think of the influence of things like, okay, the Chinese made sure this happened, the woke people made sure this happened. It's just annoying. Whereas you want to, with a movie, to me, I mean, I know there are compromises that get made, but you just want the artists to represent whatever they want. You want their vision to be on screen. So that's why some of the smaller studios or independent movies, those can be the way more interesting ones, but you know, yeah, they're hard to find.
Mm. Yeah, I just I'm always, I don't know. I feel like, uh I'm always a fan. Like I'm I used to be one of those people that would, like, even like going back to the awards, like I would be like, oh man, this won an Oscar, so this must be a decent movie, at least a decent movie.
Mm.
Like, and then come like, yeah, and then now it's like these last couple of years, I'm like, yeah, this is bullshit. Like, I think there's just like, I don't know, too much. Um,
bought and paid for awards, man.
Yeah,
Well,
I think the
did you even
Oscars.
see the movie that won the last Best Picture? Was it Parasite, the Korean film? Did you ever even see that?
That I have not actually.
Yeah, see, they always pick shit like that nobody's seen, which is always weird.
I heard it wasn't bad, but I mean, I'm
Yeah, I've heard
like
that too, but I'm
I
like,
haven't. Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, I don't know.
it could be. I mean, foreign films too. That's one thing I will kind of, say Americans are a
Did
little too, stuck with Hollywood. They really should
see they
see
were nut
more foreign
riding. They
ones.
were nut riding on Bohemian Rhapsody
Oh
a while
yeah.
back, and I wasn't. I wasn't a fan of that. Well, part of me. So part of me was like, so my thing was actually that was supposed to be Sacha Baron Cohen
Yes, I
playing
remember
Freddie
that.
Mercury, and because Sacha Baron Cohen, he was supposed to be working on a biopic about Freddie Mercury,
Yeah.
and
Then they gave it
so
to Rami Malek.
yeah, so the band decided to go along with it, but then they took a lot of the stuff that Sacha Baron Cohen wanted in the movie out, and I'm sure that the producers did too, like because they wanted to make it a little bit more persona friendly. Like he wanted to, he like he Sacha Baron Cohen, he wanted to embrace like the full Freddie Mercury
Mm,
life,
that's what I
which
heard. Is
was
he wanted
which
to
was
show the good, the bad, and the ugly, pretty
yeah,
much.
all of it. He wanted to show all of it, and me personally, I thought he would have made a great Freddie Mercury, because if you could, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that he does, and he's kind of anti-Trump or whatever. I don't know, whatever, but his personality, like, would have been great to play Freddie Mercury. Just like all his stuff with Borat and Bruno, I'm like, this dude probably could have played an excellent Freddie Mercury because he's willing to go there. Like acting wise, he is willing to absolutely go there. And um and that's what Freddie Mercury, he lived the lifestyle of just going there, going wherever the fuck he wanted to go to get what, to make a good product, to put on a good show. Like he's just willing to go there wherever he had to. And yeah, I don't know. There was just a little bit of it felt like the Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie felt restricted.
Hmm.
It felt very restricted.
I never
And
saw it because honestly, there's just something about, and I know trailers can be very deceptive, but it just never feel like anything. It didn't feel as interesting as it should have been, you know. And I would hear the reviews and hear people say, and it felt very by the books and not like you were saying where it's more daring and interesting. And so I was just kind of like, and the way it was hyped up, like I think it won the Golden Globe, for like best drama. And they nominated, see, I'm checking, they nominated for the Oscars in 2018. And that was up against, see, this was the most bullshit Oscar year. It was Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Roma, A Star is Born, Vice, Black Panther, and then the winner, Green Book. Oh, and Black Klansman. I mean, that's just such a bullshit year. And 2019 actually had some good ones. Like I've seen some of these. Parasite won Ford vs. Ferrari, which is a very solid film. The Irishman, I wasn't that impressed with that. I think Scorsese's done a lot better work. Jojo Rabbit, didn't see it, but actually looked kind of interesting. Joker, which was arguably one of the better movies of that year, maybe one of the best. And I know opinions differ on that, but that was definitely one of the more interesting movies. Little Woman, which that's just, very typical of that time sort of movie. Adaptation of a novel. Marriage Story. I know. Oh yeah, I did see that one. God, I already forgot about it. Did you see Marriage Story?
No.
That was
What's that?
with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. They basically played a couple who were going through a divorce. I will say it's one of those movies for me where I see it and I'm like, that was good, but probably don't have an interest in seeing it again. Because it kind of like it really tells me like, yeah, I never want to get fucking divorced. That's awful. Um, I mean, it's well acted, it's well done, but it's kind of like I said, it's just one of those movies that I just have no interest in seeing again. It's like, you hear like this story of this couple, and it's like there is stuff going on, but it's not like a full blown story of twists and turns and stuff. I mean, there's some moments of like, oh shit, that's happening now, but it's like they start their divorce, and by the end of it, it's kind of like it doesn't even end. It just it's like okay, this is how the divorce is gonna go, and it's like it just randomly ends. Like it literally randomly ends. So that there's that movie 1917, which I have not seen, but I know Roger Deakins did amazing cinematography for that. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I love that movie. That movie's awesome, but it's Tarantino, so you kind of expect it. But yeah, it's like 2017, The Shape of Water. I fucking hate that movie. That won Best Picture. Did you see that movie?
Well, which one?
The Shape of Water.
Um. hmm,
If you did,
No,
you
no.
forgot it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that movie
I,
pissed me off. It had like every like minority in it. It was like black, Latino, disabled, three-eyed. Like it was like every little checkbox. And there was this villain in it that was like the most. He was not just racist. He was sexist and also a rapist. Like it was so cartoony. I don't have any problem with minorities in films. I don't have any problem with like bad villains like that. But they just made it so cartoony. It was silly. Just so silly. Oh yeah. So 2016 was Moonlight. 2015 was Spotlight. 2014 was Birdman. 2013 12 Years a Slave. 2012 Argo. 2011 The Artist. 2010 The King's Speech. 2009 A Hurt Locker.
yeah,
2008.
I think after Argo, because I liked Argo.
Mm-hmm.
I did like Argo.
Yeah.
I think after that, that was like, I mean, what Moonlight? That was the fucking
That was the
the
gay one.
Boston the Boston Herald was reporting the
That
Catholic
was Spotlight.
Spotlight. Yeah,
Moonlight
yeah.
was the gay one.
Oh, Moonlight. Yeah.
Spotlight was good. I like that. I didn't think it was an amazing like 10 out of 10 movie, but I thought it was a really well done movie.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm not. I mean, I really after Argo, I really stopped being impressed with the Oscars. Like I've just stopped.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, in that year too, it was up against The Big Short, which I'd argue The Big Short's a better film. Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, and Room.
yeah. Yeah. Like The Big Short. I like The Big Short.
That movie's so rewatchable too.
Yeah. Um but yeah, I mean it's just one of those things where you're like I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what's going on with the whole selective process. Um I know they had the the Oscar so white kind of thing
Yeah, it was so stupid.
back in the day. I'm sure that probably affected the um the selection process forever.
The joke with that too was literally the person that runs the Oscars is a black female.
Hmm.
It was such a stupid controversy.
Yeah. it's yeah, people just I don't I just don't it's like when people push this shit, it's like, well, what are they really pushing? What are
Mm,
they really pushing? Because they're not pushing the logical debate because they already lost it. Right? They're not pushing um to get the jet. They're not pushing to get, to do the right thing, because again, you lose the logical debate, so the right thing probably isn't getting done. So what's the purpose? Like, what's the ulterior motive?
right.
Right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in now. So
Yeah. Gotta be cynical of everything. Yeah, and I look at like the past Oscars, and the pattern I notice too is it's always kind of this question I ask when something wins or is even nominated. I'm like, am I going to remember this movie years down the line? And you look at the old Oscars. So about roughly when you said about 2012 ish, you'd see not only the ones that won, but the nominees. Almost all of them are iconic, amazing movies. So either the problem is the Academy or the movies or both. Because like all these, like they're just like movie after movie after movie after movie. That's like, yep, I've heard it, heard that one, love that one, iconic movie, highly acclaimed movie. We're still viewing it and watching it today. How did Dead Poet Society lose in 1989? What the hell? To
I mean,
Driving Miss Daisy? What? That's unreal. Yeah, there's still some weird wins. Yeah. Yeah, how the
I
fuck?
yeah, he let's see. I'm looking up something real quick.
Okay, I'll keep rattling on this. So there's, let's see, let's go 2012 again. Yeah, 2013. Yeah, there's some in there. I guess they're gonna be remembered. Dallas Buyers Club, Her, Wolf of Wall Street. Wolf of Wall Street lost. Interesting. 12 Years a Slave. I guess. Yeah, 2014 is when the slip really starts happening. Like Birdman, I thought was so overrated.
Mm,
But American Sniper, that's an amazing movie.
yeah. So here's some interesting stuff um that I felt like I had to share, because there's some movie stuff that's, for me, I think that's kind of tied into this too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, so I guess this week, a Chinese court upheld a ruling that um, homosexuality can be considered a psychological disorder.
Wow. And here, that shit's all been
Right.
undone.
So, Chinese court has upheld a ruling that a textbook description of homosexuality as a psychological order was not a factual error, but merely an academic view. So, they believe, academically speaking, that uh, that the Chinese that homosexuality is in fact a psychological, can be labeled as a psychological disorder. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that I mean, we'll play deep into this too. So this is, we have a group in Hollywood and in sports and like pretty much everything entertainment. I mean, they're just the biggest hypocrites ever. The biggest hypocrites ever.
Oh,
Look at
yeah.
LeBron James. Example, LeBron James, right? Okay. So LeBron James is all about looking at, he's trying to fight. He's telling everybody he's fighting for what's morally right and fighting for social and fighting for injustices and all that stuff. And yet he's aligned with companies that do business in China that do Nazi Germany esque atrocities,
Yeah.
where they fuck up Uyghur Muslims. They have gobs of, like, oh, he's trying to, you know educate people on some of the slavery atrocities and whatever, but he's taking money from companies that do business in China that have uh lots of slave labor, lots of sweatshop labor, lots of that. And he's going to keep his mouth shut because they're paying his bill. They're paying his bills, and they're increasing his bottom line. So, um, it's just a hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy to the 100th degree. And really, I mean, it's really, like with Hollywood, it's just so manipulated. Like, like I wonder how, I wonder if Hollywood just doesn't know that China is playing them, or are they actually in on it too? Like, or maybe it's a little bit of both, right? Um, with Because I mean, with China, you have, like, why they're pushing they were pushing anti-Trump shit, and they wanted to get him out, and they wanted to do way with a lot of stuff. They wanted to push Biden in, right? Because China wants him in. Like, because China didn't want Trump in, because Trump stood up to China. Biden would basically bend over uh, to China, and of course, um, I think, and that's why all of these narratives are being pushed. All of these, like, oh, racial injustice and all that stuff. Well, obviously it's bullshit, because, like, look, logically, the arguments for anything that these sociology majors and activists and all that stuff, like, it doesn't pass the logic test. But they're gonna push it because it divides us. China likes a divided America. They're not our friends. They love a divided America. And um I think these Hollywood elites, these entertainment elites, they're going along with it, well, because they're getting paid to. So I, I don't know. But anyway, that Chinese court ruling thing, that was pretty interesting. Like, it just shows how much. Oh yeah, and then, because LeBron James is trying to do Space Jam 2, and he's trying to get it into Chinese theaters where they can launder money. So anyway, um, yeah. So the Chinese thing, that was interesting. It was just a little nugget of hypocrisy goodness for the young world. Let's see what else is going. Look at look at what's going on in here.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that. Which, it sounds like another peak China thing. There really hasn't been too much going on this week. There's just been a few bigger stories, but we'll talk about a few more things and then we'll close out for tonight. Before it gets too late. I always go to, one site, actually, surprisingly, you might hate me for this. It's actually not bad with figuring out what's hot, what's starting to trend, what's starting to be the talk of the town. Is actually Axios. Axios, while they are left wing, I do like they give like nice TLDRs in their stories, but they also give you a sense of what's kind of coming around the curb. So I'm gonna look at their
Yeah.
site right now. Cause I look at all, like, the sources I have bookmarked, that I actively look at now are AP, Reuters, Fox, CNN, Real Clear Politics. Those are like my go-to sources. Fox I've been going to less of, but I always look at CNN and Reuters and AP daily. Real Clear Politics can be really good for aggregating stuff. But let's see what's going on. I mean, there's the COVID relief bill, which I guess we'll finally get. We'll finally get our $1,400 check this time.
Yeah, it'll be worth like $200 by the time we get it because of the devaluation of the dollar. But anyway,
Yeah. Well, actually, that reminded me of something that I know you'd be interested in talking about. Number one, that's why I look into crypto. But number two is, holy shit, is the stock market gone flip-de-doo? Man, a lot of things went crashing down. Tesla keeps going down.
yeah,
That
this was
one's
not a good week.
crazy.
This was not a good week for the stock market.
Yeah.
Not a good week.
But what's been going
Man,
up? What's been going up? GME, baby.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think, I think a lot of that really has had ripple effects in the stock market too, because
I
people are
think
starting
so.
because like it does have a ripple effect if you think about it. Because one of the things when GME blew up and the Wall Street Bets did its thing, like these hedge funds lose their fucking money, right? And when they're losing their money, it totally destroys their ability to invest in other shit, right? And that again, it has a ripple effect on so many other stocks because you're talking about a lot of these hedge funds that pushed down GameStop were involved in a whole lot of other stocks as well. So while it had a positive effect on the GameStop stock itself, it's had a negative effect on some of the other stocks itself, which, it is what it is. Um, but like I think that might have accelerated a lot of the uh, the economic downturn that we all knew was coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so yeah, no, so now we're stuck with what we got now, and yeah, I don't know where that leaves a lot of us because I don't know. There's a part of me that just doesn't I don't I mean it does I don't trust crypto just because like just because of where it's from and who created it and who how much of it do they create and like I don't know like there's a lot that goes into analyzing each cryptocurrency and like
Mm-hmm.
uh yeah I don't know we'll see what happens but yeah.
The thing that worries me about crypto is not necessarily those things, but just because I feel like it's gonna be a when, not an if, when the federal government steps in, what happens to it? I mean, there like when I was in a clubhouse with Jacob Wall, one of the things I asked him was, is there any lobbying effort being done on behalf of crypto? For or against. And he said most of the lobbying, because he's now technically a lobbyist, he said that it's mostly actually pro crypto. Like people like Coinbase, they're getting lobbyists and basically so they can keep fucking running. They know that there's going to be a push to clamp down on it. So, and the federal government's more powerful than, everyone in many ways. Are they more competent? No. But they have a lot of power. So I am concerned of the day that something federally happens to it. But at the same time, currently, I think things like Tesla, what they did is really smart because you ain't making shit in the bank. You're making nothing. you make more off of crypto. Even when it goes down, it comes back up and you make more than you make in the bank. Not saying you should put your whole, bank account into crypto. That is stupid. But like what Tesla did, take a portion of it, throw it in there. I wouldn't blame anybody for doing that. But throwing all your money into like GME or something, that's not smart. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, but take a little piece of it. I understand, but GME's been interesting because, it had its spike. It had its peak on January 27th. It went back down. Let's see, what was that? Its peak? It was at 347. Then it went down to 193 on January 28th. So a day later, it bottomed out there, and then it spiked back up on January 29th to 325. Dropped way back down, and for like a few weeks, it was staying low. And I thought about getting some to kind of lower my average. Hindsight, probably should have, but whatever. But it's been going back up. It just keeps going up since then. It's been going up and down, but overall trends, it's been up. It's starting to level out a little bit, but who knows what that actually means. So it's been interesting watching that one, because nothing about it's like, in my opinion, nothing with stocks makes sense. But with the GME one, usually there were some like patterns. Like after hours, it would just go crazy up. This time, it's like it'll go crazy up during power hour. It'll go way down during after hours, and then the next day nothing will happen, and then the day after it'll go crazy high during after hours, and then in the morning keep going up. Like it goes all over the place. So I no clue what the fuck's happening to it though. But over this past week, it peaked at 150. Technically 149, but it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So we shall see. Some are predicting that this is going to be a very long, climb up to those big numbers people were thinking it was going to hit. I don't know. We'll see. But it'll be interesting. Because, AMC went up to, I think, $10 at one point, and it's come back down. The meme stocks have been just very interesting.
Yeah. They've been pretty interesting, which I don't know. It's fun to look at, but you need something fun to look at while everything else is going to complete shit.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing I will say, despite, I'm always the guy that's when these people on TV like Kramer and these others come this is unhealthy, this is wrong, we can't have this happen to the stock market. It's I think they're being, they don't like when other people can fuck with their shit and it doesn't go as planned.
It is bad,
but it technically is.
Yeah. Real. It is bad, but it's also those two opinions are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I agree.
It is bad, but it is still fun to watch at the same time.
That's how I look at it, is I think these people being a bunch of hypocrites, because it's oh, you can fuck with the stock, but when we do it, it's a problem. But at the same time, the fundamental principle does remain the same, which is when it's not free market, when you're fucking with it, when you're pumping shit, when you're inflating shit or deflating shit, it only is going to end ultimately long term in a bad way. It's the housing crisis is a great example. They fucked with all those I forget all those stupid terms, but you've seen the big show, how it was all fucked up. And look what happened. I think there is going to be a big, obviously, yes, there will be a big crash. It's inevitable. But I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Because there's somebody told me this before I left Penn State due to COVID. I forget what the predictor element was. But he was saying that every, I don't know if it's 2 years or whatever it is, there's a massive crash. And this thing predicts it has always predicted it correctly. And I thought, that's interesting. We'll see. And sure enough, what happened? There was a crash with COVID because he said there'd be one coming up in a few months. And during COVID, the stock market tanked, all time lows. So I don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but I feel like in a few years during Biden's term, there's gonna be a big freaking crash.
Well, this week was the. I mean, this week was a crash. Like people were bitching like, oh, they why well, there's not a stock market crash because the Dow Jones was up. Which first off, the Dow Jones is not a reliable um indicator of the overall stock market. It's basically the top certain number of stocks, right?
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, most of the markets they were down hard this week, particularly because um, they were talking about the treasury rates going up, and when treasury rates go up, stocks go down because it tends to have a negative effect on Fed borrowing and stuff. But anyway, um, so we'll see. I mean, look, you got the stimulus bill coming down the pike, which doesn't mean much for us other than the $1,400. It's gonna be like enough to buy you dried milk and water for the next year, I guess. I don't know.
I can pay for my GPU with it
Yes.
that I
Um,
can't get. And then that's the problem of like, as much as I have put, as people can see on the screen, some shares and stocks, what I don't like is, and this obviously is the nature of it, is like, you're holding on to it, so that's money you can't use for spending. It's like it's tied up in your stock, so it's like, it can be a little annoying in that regard. But long term, not financial advice, nothing we say is financial advice, but all I'll say is I am only selling when shit's green because that's the only time you should sell. Wait till you see the green and then boom. But Tesla, oh fuck, I wouldn't have known. I like people like, oh, it's overvalued. I'm like, yeah, it is. And I thought I bought it when it was going down, and it just kept going down. Oh god.
yeah, I
But that
think.
one will go back up as long as they stay in business.
Yeah, I mean they'll be fine. I mean, I think we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with this whole stimulus thing too, as
Yeah.
far as the electric vehicle thing goes.
Well, I think another electric company just came on the stock exchange. I forget what their name is because I've seen them before, but honestly, they're not too promising in my opinion because they're very, very like Tesla. Yes, they're small, but like this company's extremely small and their vehicles are extremely expensive. I think is it Lucid Air? I forget what it's called, but it's another electric car company came on the market. Roblox is going to be coming on the market next week,
Mm.
which I mean that's kind of been a meme or a joke that like people thought you could like make money off of children in that game, but like it going public, I think that's gonna be really funny. That's gonna be the next meme stock that people are gonna fuck with because Roblox is already a meme and it's gonna become more of one. Yeah, the company's called Lucid, the electric car company.
Mm.
I mean, their cars look cool, but I don't know how fucking good the company is. I mean, they're really expensive too. Like their cheapest car is 70 grand starting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean that's how Tesla started out too.
That is true. They started with a small market so that they could grow into other ones. But it could. I mean, I'm not saying it's destined to fail. It's just I'm iffy on it because Tesla did like the impossible. It's like, can lightning strike twice? I mean, yeah, stupid analogy, but you get my point.
Yeah. Mm.
Are all your stocks red?
Yeah. This week, yes.
Actually, the only one of mine that I think was not bad was Citizens Bank, which I'm thinking of potentially selling. See, I'm kind of waiting to see how it starts going because it's kind of made double, which is what I wanted out of it. But it's a weird stock where like it'll only go up like a couple pennies or $1 in a day. Like it really doesn't move much. But I think it's at its highest ever in 5 years. Yeah. Yeah, when I got in on that shit, it was like 16-ish dollars roughly. Yeah, like $17. And now it's up to like 44, which is it's like its highest was like 45 or 46.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have anything else to talk about. Do you want to talk about anything else, or do you want to close her out?
I am all tapped out right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that should do it.
Yeah. Hopefully we have Alex back for Tuesday, because on Tuesday we're actually gonna have a Yao guy that we're gonna talk to. So that should be interesting.
That should be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll continue our Yao 2 coverage. I'm supposed to get a call from one of these Yao 2 people this week, but next week, I mean, technically. But that will be, I guess I might be able to report on that on the show. I'll have to ask her, but she says there's some things I need to correct the record on. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be interesting. But that's it. Subscribe, like, share the videos always. Almost at 300. Let's try and get us there. That'd be awesome. We'd love to hit our 300. I mean, it took a lot to get from 0 to 100, then 100 to 200, and it takes a while to get to 200, 300, but it's been a little quicker. So let's do it, guys. Give us a like and a subscribe for that. But we'll catch you guys next week. Or on Tuesday, actually. As long if everything goes planned, we'll be back on Tuesday and then back on Saturday again. So subscribe for that, for the Yao 2 drama to continue.
All right. Later, Gators.
Bye. Wash your hands and clean your penis.